If you're in favor of freedom of speech, that means you're in favor of freedom of speech precisely for views you despise. Otherwise, you're not in favor of freedom of speech.
Good evening, dear listener. You're listening to WHRW 90.5 FM Binghamton. My name is Patrick. We are back with another episode of Binghamton Review Live.
Happy Halloween, guys.
Happy Halloween!
Happy Halloween. Make sure you're wearing a lot of offensive costumes.
This is going to be a spooky episode.
I'm spooked. I'm getting ready to be spooked. Alright, let's start. Why don't we start out and move in? Jordan has another international story for us. Let's look what's going on outside the United States. Jordan?
Alright, well, speaking of Halloween, Pat, ready to get spooked? Alright, let's get spooked together. So, China it's in the works. They're developing this new system called social credit. And what social credit is it's a system where if you're caught, in China, it's basically going to turn into a surveillance state by 2020, where everything you do and everything you say is going to be monitored. So if you are caught saying anything against the government, if you're caught saying anything against President Xi or the Communist Party or whatever, that is going to impact your social credit score. And I believe in the documentary I saw about this, I believe that the maximum score is 800, so that's really good. So that's basically for people that toe the party line, don't question the system, and are just good Chinese people. 800 is a good score. And you're divided into 3 separate categories. Let's see. So you're basically labeled as, good standing, you may be a problem, and then, you're just absolutely a problem. The article that I have here doesn't specify those, but you're basically divided into categories based on what your social credit score is. And basically what this does is, if you have a very high social credit score, you can go anywhere you want in China. You have complete freedom of movement. If you have a score toward the lower end, you can move some places, but you're restricted for most areas. And if you have a very low credit score, then it says here that from the Communist Party itself put out a statement that basically is saying that if you have a good social credit score, you can move, from anywhere from here to heaven. In other words, you can move wherever you want. But if you have a very low social credit score, it's going to be very hard to even move a step. So this is really, really terrifying. Of course, it's not an American thing. It's a Chinese thing. So, I guess it's less scary for us, but it's still scary because, there are people, I think, that would see this and try to get it, see, look what China's doing, and then try to get it implemented in their countries. And what I want to say in regard to America's role in this, not that we have a role, but my point is, what I would say should be the American reaction to this, that's a better word, is since Donald Trump has said before that he has a pretty good relationship with China's President Xi Jinping, what Trump should do is say, what are you doing? Is there something that I could do to make it so you guys don't do this? Because I think that since President Trump and President Xi are apparently somewhat good friends, I think that Trump can have some sway over him and convince him to not be, an authoritarian lunatic. And but I think that this won't. I think it won't happen. Number one, because I guess realistically, what are we as Americans going to do? But number two, also, it just needs to be said, Trump probably secretly, if he learns about this, he probably would kind of like it, because Trump has a very, very authoritarian impulse. Now, this is not some hacky point. It's true. He does have a very, very, and we can talk about that in a later episode, but for time's sake, just trust me, he's got a very authoritarian streak. Not saying that it's as authoritarian as, for instance, Xi Jinping or Kim Jong-un. He's not like that. Obviously our system guarantees more rights and more freedoms than a place like China or North Korea, but I am worried that sometimes Trump does have very authoritarian impulses, and this is just very, very disturbing that China's going in this direction, and it's going to be fully operational in just 2 years. I mean, that is really scary, because they're already getting it underway now and testing it out, but in 2020, it's fully operational, and China, the people are going to be screwed. And the last thing I want to say before I move on to, before we get Matt's reaction from this is, one thing that this documentary that I saw on this very issue said was that it's going to be, although it's applied to all Chinese citizens, it's going to be especially hard since they don't have a lot of freedom of movement anyway. It's going to be especially hard for a group called the Uyghurs, and the Uyghurs are they are a Muslim minority population in China, and their ancestors are basically from the Caucasus, so like Turkmenistan, Kyrgyzstan, the Caucasus region near Russia, so like between Russia and China. So this documentary was basically postulating that it's going to be disproportionately used against them to keep them down. So this is really, really frightening, and I hope nothing like this ever happens in America. I mean, we have it bad enough where all these tech companies are telling people what they can and can't say, and removing platforms that they don't like, that they disagree with, either politically or socially or whatever. But China's taking it a step further, and it's really, really scary to me. Very scary. So, Matt?
Yeah, so I'm just going to disagree that Trump has authoritarian policies. And, we're not talking about that, but I just want to throw that out there. Actually, I think he has very libertarian impulses. Not that he's a libertarian-type president, not that he likes libertarian policies, but more like deregulation. He doesn't really get in people's lives. But besides the point, I'm going to talk about why I have very weird stances on the social credit system. But I'm actually going to just talk about why I would be afraid of it. So this was a thing in Black Mirror a couple of years ago. The Black Mirror episode was called Nosedive, and it was a social credit system that was more extreme than the one that China's doing. So it wasn't like government run, it was people run. So it was kind of like an app, and every time you had an interaction with somebody, you would give them 5 stars, you give them 1 star, and then you'd have a rating. And then depending on that rating, people would want to be friends with you. You get like better deals. You get higher class at the airport.
Right.
So your rating would literally be your entire life in this episode of Black Mirror. So for those of you who don't know, Black Mirror is a show where they take technology that we have now and show how it could realistically be implemented in the future in some kind of dystopian way. It's a very, very good show. There's only like 20 episodes or something like that, so if you haven't seen it, you should probably watch it. It's amazing. But that's why seeing the Nosedive episode a couple years ago and then seeing this is kind of scary, because that's what the show does, is it takes technology that we have now and shows how it could be used to the extreme in the future. And now this is happening, so it could end up the way that it was in Black Mirror. So in the episode, Lacey was the main character, and she was on her way to her friend's wedding. She was the maid of honor, and she ran into someone, spilled her coffee, she got 1 starred, her rating went down, a whole bunch of other like really small things happened, her rating went down, and then she got to the airport, she couldn't buy a flight ticket because her rating wasn't high enough. So at the end of the episode, she lost her entire life through a whole series of events. It's really good. She freaked out, and it's one of the more scary, more mature, sad endings to a Black Mirror episode. And a lot of things that happened in that episode are being described here in this article that you sent to me, Jordan. Like higher ratings on the social credit system in China, you can get better hotels and stuff like that. And that's really scary. So when I think about the social credit system, I'm not against credit systems. I'm against government run types of credit systems like this. I'm against ones that interfere with private businesses, such as you get better plane tickets, you get better hotels for it. So this is scary. The fact that the Chinese have turned this into kind of like an Orwellian thing, like a surveillance type thing, rather than just like a moral incentive or a fun app or something that could help you in situations like that. Like if they had like a criminal record one where you just had a number which basically showed how many like laws you've broken or something, that could be useful for like government systems or maybe for like job interviews and but something like this that's overarching, something that's Orwellian, something that's surveillance based is really scary, and it's particularly scary because I can visualize it as that episode of Black Mirror, similar to like other episodes where they've taken other types of technology and put it to the extreme. You see how simple technologies like your phone or your computer or like VR gaming systems can turn really extreme and really scary fast. So being able to visualize it definitely makes this thing, as the article says, it's chilling.
Yeah.
Chilling.
Chilling.
Yeah.
I think it might be fun. Like, what's concerning for me is that like you have to be perfect government stooge to even be at the base level of regular human freedom. Like, you know, if you wanted to do like, so it's a negative.
Right.
You have to fall down. You can never really. When you get back up, it's as if you can't.
They interviewed somebody in the documentary that had ties to, that was in like really good standing in the Chinese government, and she was like, "Oh, I don't see a problem, you know, with this system."
Yeah, of course you don't.
You know, it's like, yeah, you don't, but you know.
Yeah.
What's your credit rating, huh?
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah, hers was like 700 and something, so like really good.
The 5 stars was easy.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
It's
Maybe
just
not stars.
it's insane.
Yeah.
But no, I think it might, sort of like you were talking about, Matt, you have sort of complicated views on this. What I think might be good, you were talking about, like, you can use it to score other things, you know, like, not necessarily government.
Not against scoring things in a
Right.
useful way.
Right. Like, I mean, the way I would...
And I'm not either, by the way, I just want to clarify. I just don't agree with go against your government and we're going to give you a score and we're going to either give you rewards and incentives, or we're gonna, you know, punish you and keep you under house arrest, basically.
Right, exactly. Yeah, like I would do it like like a Groupon. You can get better deals on certain stuff if you
if a private company did it.
Right, private company.
You get better prices at our store.
Right.
Yeah,
not necessarily government forced. But
Mm-hmm.
there's another thing that I'm actually worried about with this. About a week ago, I listened to, I believe his name was Scott Adams. He's a writer. And he's been writing a lot about Trump recently and talking about like his communication strategies. Like he's analyzing the way Trump talks and stuff. And when I was listening to him, he said, I'm worried that Trump is the last human president because he fears that every other president in the future is going to be determined by an algorithm. By like social media companies who can understand what the voters want. And there's an algorithm that it's really complicated, and I know we have to move on to the next topic in about like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
But this makes things a lot more robotic too.
Yeah.
Where everything is determined by a formula, or everything is determined by technology, instead of like we already see it. Like people text a lot more. People sit in their homes and text their friends a lot more than go out and see them. So we already talk about it all the time. How cell phones have made people like less human, more robotic, and something like this, something that could turn into a nosedive situation where. Like Lacey would go talk to somebody and she'd just be like robotic with them so that we should get a good rating.
Yeah. Quantification of humanity.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, very good. Yeah. No, that's definitely something to look at in you know with raised eyebrows. Moving forward. So we'll move domestic now. Matt's topic is the upcoming midterm elections happening in 6 days.
So we were gonna get spooky, and there's nothing scarier than the generic ballot. It's like +8 or something like that for the Democrats. God. I see the Real Clear Politics average every night before I go to bed. So the midterm elections are coming up in 6 days, so make sure you get out and vote. So right now the Republicans have a 23-seat majority in the House, a 23-seat advantage in the House. So Democrats, that means Democrats have to flip 23 seats in the House, and the Republicans have a 1-seat advantage in the Senate. But not every Senate seat's up. Only 35 of them are. So what do you guys want to do? You want to do the House first or the Senate, or does it matter?
Whatever.
Doesn't-
Yeah, whatever you feel most comfortable with.
Alright,
Yeah.
okay, we'll do the House
Go ahead.
first. So the House is where the Republicans are playing the defensive. It looks like the Democrats are going to take the House. The Democrats have 52 opportunities to flip seats in the House. The Republicans have 4.
Hmm.
Out of the 52 opportunities that the Democrats have to flip seats in the House, they're favored in 24 of them, and they're heavily favored in 17 of those 24. So they need to only flip 23. They have 52 opportunities to do that. The Republicans have 4. And out of those 4, they're only favored in 2.
Yikes.
So this is pretty scary stuff. So there's like 16 races that are considered virtual ties right now. They're way too close to call on the House. Those races, the Republicans essentially have to sweep. They have to win all 16 of them if they want to keep the House, and even then, it seems like they only keep the House by 1. And this is based on just what the polls are saying, based on what, like, pundits are saying and stuff. This isn't obviously definite. Like, there's always, in every election, there are Republicans who win Democrat-favored seats and Democrats who win Republican-favored seats. Like, there's always going to be upsets and stuff, depending on who goes out and votes. We can't, obviously, determine it all, or...
Literally 2016.
Yeah, we wouldn't need an election.
Yeah.
We wouldn't need an election at all if I could just sit here and say, like, oh, the Democrats are just going to win these 24, and that's that.
Yeah.
So we obviously need the election. But based on all the information that we have right now, it looks like the Republicans would have to win all 16 of those virtual tie states. One of them is right here in Binghamton, Claudia Tenney and Anthony Bernese, one of the top 5 closest races in the country. And of all 470 House races, they were like top 5. So make sure you get out and vote. Your vote counts a lot up here in Binghamton. So yeah, Democrats need to flip 23 seats, and a lot of states that are going blue are California, New Jersey, and New York, obviously. There's like 5 seats in California that are Republican now that are projected to flip Democrat. New Jersey, there's like 4. I could look it up in a second, like while Jordan talks. But there's a lot of specific states that are going really blue.
Yeah.
So, Jordan?
Yeah, it's funny because there's 2 extremes when you talk about the midterms. There's 2 extreme perspectives. Some people are predicting a complete blue wave. Some people that I've heard are predicting, or at least hoping for, a complete red wave. I think it's more nuanced, and I think I'm more in the middle, where I think the Democrats are going to take back the House, but I think the Republicans are going to keep the Senate. That's my prediction. I'm not, clairvoyant. I can't predict the future. I don't have a crystal ball in front of me, but from the data that I've seen, from the polls that I've seen, and from commentary from other commentators that I've soaked in, that's my position, is that, yeah, Republicans are going to keep the Senate, but the Democrats are going to take back the House.
I'd agree, yeah. So there are 4 California seats that are projected to flip Democrat, 4 New Jersey, 4 Pennsylvania. Then there are 2 virtual ties in California, 2 in New York, 1 in Pennsylvania. So there are like specific states that are projected to go blue. So then if we move on to the Senate, I would agree with you that the Republicans are going to keep the Senate. They're actually going to gain in the Senate, which actually isn't as good as you would think. It's good that they're gaining if you're a Republican, like myself. But even if you're a Republican, it's not as good as it sounds, because there are 26 Democrat seats up for election for the Democrats, and then for the Republicans there are only 9. And in 10 of those 26 states, Trump won them. So the Republicans should be winning a lot more. They should easily be able to win like 10 seats based on the Senate map. Like, there's never been a Senate map this favorable for one party ever, and Republicans are only projected to gain like 2 or 3 seats, maybe 4.
Maybe they're tired of winning.
That's exactly what it is. Nope, never tired of winning.
Never tired of winning.
So in the Senate, there are like I said, a whole bunch of Democrat seats up. Out of all the Democrat seats up, there are 16 of them that are considered safe for the Democrats. And out of all the Republican seats up, there are 4 that are safe for the Republicans. One of them being Orrin Hatch's seat, that's now being taken over by Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney should win that easily in Utah. But there are 15 states that are competitive, that we don't really know who's going to win. I can give my predictions. Some of them are leaning favored, some of them aren't. But the Republicans need to win 4 of those to keep the Senate. That's not a lot, 4 out of the 15, so they should easily be able to do that. Right now, Republicans are already favored in 5 of them. In Cindy Hyde-Smith, Dean Heller, Marsha Blackburn, Ted Cruz, and Kevin Kramer are all projected to win their states. Kevin Kramer specifically is against Heidi Heitkamp, the incumbent, so that's one of them where the Republicans are actually going to flip a seat. Heidi Heitkamp's basically done in North Dakota. Democrats are favored in 7 of those, and then that leaves like 3 of them that are too close to call. One thing that's interesting, so I have this, I made my predictions on the elections. I finished that up this weekend, but one of my predictions, I predicted that Joe Donnelly would beat Mike Braun in Indiana, and today I saw that Mike Braun's actually favored. But like it's a lean Republican, which is super interesting. I still don't know if I buy it, but if anything, we can move it from like lean Democrat to a toss-up.
Yeah.
That's good news for the Republicans. The 3 too close to call are Martha McSally in Arizona is against Kirsten Sinema. Kirsten Sinema believes in witchcraft, so that's enough said. In Florida, it's Bill Nelson, the current senator, against Rick Scott, the former governor.
Oh, wow.
So that's been super close the entire time. And then Missouri, Claire McCaskill, another Democrat that's likely to flip into a Republican, is going against Josh Hawley. If I had to predict those 3 right now, I'd say McSally would win for the Republicans in Arizona. I'd say Hawley would win for the Republicans in Missouri. And then Bill Nelson squeaks it out in Florida for the Democrats. But those are super close.
Mm-hmm.
Which would give the Republicans 53 seats.
Okay.
If Joe Donnelly wins in Indiana like I originally predicted and there wasn't that weird flip at the end.
Yeah.
And then those 3 I got correct, that would give the Republicans 53.
Okay, well, what about, so if we do end up with a divided Congress after this midterms, what does that mean for either Republican policy initiatives, Democrat obstructionism? What is that, what can we see for the next 2 years? Jordan, got any thoughts?
Yes, I have a very cynical take on this. In other words, that see, the thing is that I disagree that the Democrats actually obstruct as much as some people think they do. I think that that narrative gets a little bit overplayed.
Right. I'm not saying that that's inherent in their party. I'm saying, like, now that they have a foothold in a House of Congress, that's going to be their go-to. Like, hey, we kept Trump from doing all these things. Look at us, rah rah rah.
Right. And then, you do have people like Joe Manchin that vote with Trump a lot. And you have people, Democrats, and I think just a random note. I think even Bernie Sanders voted for, was it Gorsuch? No, it was one of his picks, though. One of Trump's picks.
Probably was
for
not
the,
Kavanaugh.
It wasn't.
It wasn't Kavanaugh.
There's only one Democrat.
I think it was Gorsuch. But anyway, the point is that I think that that even though we'll have a divided Congress, like you said, I think that the Democrats, just because I used to be, as I've said before, I don't have a lot of confidence that they're gonna, that they might do some things to throw a bone to the progressive base, but I really don't know. I can't, like I said, I can't predict the future, but an educated guess would be that they are probably going to obstruct some things, because that's just what happens in politics, is some obstruction. But I think mostly you're going to see quite a bit of caving just based on past experience. And that's another thing we could get into in a later episode, but we don't have a lot of time now. So, Matt, carry on.
Yeah, no, Bernie Sanders did not vote for either of his nominees. It must have been something else that was big for Trump.
No, it was his intervention in Syria. That's what Bernie Sanders voted for. I'm sorry. I just remember that. It wasn't about the picks. It was Bernie Sanders approved Trump intervening in Syria last year. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, foreign policy tends to split less on the party. I mean, under Trump, you would assume... Under Trump, everything splits more in policy. I mean, we're at the point where we're arguing about anti-Semitism. So
right.
When you get to a part where the two parties are arguing about that, like, everything's split, which is terrible. Don't do that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if the Democrats take the House, which it looks like they are, I think they're going to gain between 23 and 33 seats, which would give them the House. They're going to obstruct everything possible. We're going to see impeachment papers within the first couple months. They're already talking about it. Like that's what they're going to run on too in 2020 is obstructing Trump and impeach Trump, and he's awful.
Hashtag resist.
Right, because that worked so well in 2016 for the Democrats. That worked so well that
Well, they're gonna do it
we're
again.
not Trump.
They're going to do it again. They're going to do it harder in 2020. It's going to
No, I agree.
It's going to be absolutely awful. But like Trump's first State of the Union address, when he talked about infrastructure, which is usually a Democrat policy and not a Republican policy, and the Democrats sat down and didn't clap for him. I mean, they just hate Trump. They don't care about policy when it comes to Trump. Not that Democrats don't care about policy in general, but when it comes to Trump, they don't care about policy. They just care about stopping him. So that's going to be really awful. So that's why I'm hoping that the Republicans can keep the House even by 1 seat. Wouldn't bet on it. Probably not going to happen. But the obstruction we see all the time, like the Kavanaugh thing, obstructing like an extremely qualified judge, it was clearly political too. It's like we're just going to see that amped up if they have one of the chambers, especially the House, where a lot of bills start, is in the House. So we're going to see a lot of Democrats making bills in the House that get shut down in the Senate. All the bills that we do see get passed are going to be like the really small bills. Like if you just turn on C-SPAN at any random time and they're voting on something random, like nothing big, it's usually pretty unanimous or a pretty majority. Like not everything splits on party when it's something stupid and
Naming
small.
a post office.
Yeah, exactly. Like nobody really cares about that enough to split. So a lot of those bills get passed. Not like we're gonna have 0 bills passed. Same thing when Obama was president with a Republican Congress. Like that's a lot of bills still got passed. They just weren't the huge stuff. So we'll see a lot of obstruction on the big stuff, healthcare reform, which they're still trying to do but don't have the votes. Immigration reform, which there's a lot of talking about, like in the past couple days.
Birthright citizenship we might have to cover next time.
Yeah,
See,
I wanted to
how
do
it
it.
flushes out.
I wanted to do it, but like midterms are in 6 days. I couldn't.
Yeah.
We
No,
can
of
pass
course.
up
Yeah.
on the
Yeah, we'll do it
midterms.
next week.
Yeah.
I'm very passionate about it. And I know what I want to talk about for birthday citizenship, so I'm excited.
Well, all right.
To say the least. But
Very good.
And surprisingly, Matt and I were talking a little bit about that before we went on the air, and we actually mostly agreed. So there you go.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
I'll have to fight you guys then.
All right.
Okay. Yeah. Well, future of the Congress.
Yeah, it's scary. But the one good thing that could happen is if the Democrats take the House, it could like amp up the Republicans for 2020. That's something that happens. The party that wins one election usually doesn't win the next one. So if the Democrats, if there's a huge blue wave that might increase voter turnout in 2020, when the Republicans say, "Oh man, like we were complacent and we lost, so now we got to go out in big numbers."
Right.
I still don't want to bet on that. There's a saying that politics has a short-term memory, so we really won't remember that in 2 years, the specifics of it. But I do think the Democrats are going to take the House. Republicans will gain 3 to 4 seats in the Senate. We're going to have a split Congress, and it's going to be bad.
Okay. Well, if you want to see Matt's blow by blow of his predictions of person by person, state by state, we have his midterm election guide up on binghamtonreview.com. If that's something you're interested in,
you should do that. I took a week writing that.
You can go take a look.
Do it.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We will see you again next week after the midterms.
Happy
where we're talking
Halloween.
about a lot of good stuff. Please be safe tonight on Halloween night.